Hey, how you doing, everyone? Welcome back to perhaps the greatest YouTube channel in the world. Maybe one day. But in today's video, we're going to check out ChatGPT and we're going to see if AI can teach someone how to ride a motorcycle. Now, for those of you that don't know, ChatGPT is an AI chatbot. It gathers information from the internet. You ask it a question, you ask it to do a thing for you, and it will get the best information that it can off the internet, condense it, and then burp it back out at you. And in today's video, we're going to test it out. We're going to see if ChatGPT, or AI, can actually give you the right information. And, well, I'm going to give you my take on the information that it puts out. Because, of course, there's a lot of wrong information out there on the internet, and ChatGPT, well, it has quite a difficult job trying to distinguish what is the right information from the wrong information. So that's kind of like the little experiment that we're going to try out today. All right. So here's ChatGPT. The very first question I'm going to ask it is simple. How to ride a motorcycle. Okay. Riding a motorcycle requires skill, knowledge, and attention to safety. Here's a basic guide to get you started. Get licensed. First and foremost, you need a motorcycle license or endorsement on your driver's license. This usually involves passing a written test and a riding skills test. Okay, this first point here in the UK isn't necessarily the case. If you want to ride all motorcycles, then yeah, of course, you are going to need a riding license, either an A license or an A2 license, but you can get an A1 license, which is basically a 125cc license. You can get them from age of 17, and all you have to do is what's known as a CBT, which is compulsory basic training. There's no exams, there's no tests or anything like that. It is just a training day. And so half the day is spent going over the basics on a bike or a scooter, and then the other half of the day should be out and about riding on the road. So, I mean, I know that I haven't really asked specifically in the UK, but just something to keep in mind. All right, number 2, choose the right bike. Start with a motorcycle that's suitable for beginners. Consider factors like engine size, weight, and riding position. A smaller, lighter bike is generally easier to handle for beginners. Yeah, I think that statement is mostly true. Again, in the UK, we don't really get much of a choice in the matter. If you're starting to ride bikes, you have to start off on a 125. There are direct access courses that you can do if you are over, I think it's 21 or 25, maybe 24 years old, something like that. I can never remember exactly how it works these days, the license structure, what ages and what have you. But if you're under 25 years old, pretty much you have to start off on a 125. You have to be riding that for a minimum of 2 years, or I think until you're like 19 years old before you can progress to an A2 license. And then from there you can go on to a full A license, I think when you turn 21, something like that. Gear up. Always wear appropriate safety gear, including helmet, gloves, jacket, pants, and boots. Safety gear can protect you in case of a fall or accident. Pants, yeah. You can't wear without pants, guys. You've got to make sure you go out there with your protective pants on. Okay, so this is the American word for trousers, of course, or jeans. All right. So appropriate safety gear. That is a little bit subjective, but it does give you the basics. So a helmet, gloves, jacket, riding jeans, and boots. Safety gear can protect you in case of a fall or accident. The one thing I wish it would say on here is that there's no guarantee that the safety gear is actually going to protect you. Like anything, even a helmet, for example, if you're traveling over a certain speed, even 50 or 60 mile an hour, you get in a crash, a helmet might not protect you as much as you think it would. Alright, so now we're actually moving on to riding the bike itself. So learn the controls. Familiarize yourself with the motorcycle's controls, including the throttle, brakes, clutch, gears, and indicators. Practice using them until they become second nature. Okay? I think it's going to get a little bit more specific a little bit later on, but let's see here. Mounting the motorcycle. Approach the motorcycle from the left side. Swing your leg over the seat and settle onto the bike. Make sure you can comfortably reach the handlebars, foot pegs, and controls. You can mount a motorcycle from the right-hand side as well. Most of the time it's okay. The way how I have to park up the ZX9 at home is on the opposite side, so I can't actually get off the bike from the left-hand side or get on it from the left-hand side. I've got to get on it and get off it from the right-hand side, so it is doable, but the easiest way to get on and off a motorcycle is from the left-hand side. Starting the motorcycle. Turn the ignition key to the on position. If the bike has a kickstand, make sure it is up. Well, first of all, pick the bike up off the kickstand before you pick it up, of course. Pull in the clutch lever. Okay, so that is the left lever, yep. And press the start button or kickstart the bike if it is a kickstart model. Yep, the vast majority of motorcycles these days have a starter button, which is on the right-hand side, the right handlebar. Shifting gears. Okay, so it hasn't actually mentioned about clutch control in this one. Okay, let's have a look. So most motorcycles have manual transmissions. Practicing shifting gears using the clutch and gear lever. Start off in first gear, then shift up as you gain speed. To shift up, ease off the throttle, pull in the clutch, shift up with your left foot, then release the clutch smoothly while rolling on the throttle again. Okay, doesn't really go into too much detail here, unfortunately. So honestly, the easiest way, because things like clutch controllers are one of the hardest things that people, or I wouldn't say it's one of the hardest things actually, but it's one of the things that people get most intimidated by when they start learning to ride a motorcycle. So for the most part, it's a case of pulling in that clutch lever, holding it down, putting the bike into first gear, which is a push down on the gear lever, which is on the left foot, on your left foot, push it down, and there should be a little neutral light, which is green. If that goes off, then you know you're in first gear, or maybe you have a gear indicator as well. A lot of bikes don't have gear indicators, but if you do, then it will show a 1 on the dashboard. And then from there, the easiest thing to do is just ignore the throttle and open the clutch just on its own and see if you can get the bike moving just using the clutch, because at idle revs you should have enough torque on a 125 to get the bike moving. It's not going to move very fast. I mean, you're probably going to be moving less than 3, 4, 5 mile an hour or so, but that's honestly the easiest way to learn the clutch control. Just try and practice that without stalling the bike. We've got 2 or 3 videos now explaining that process. Just Google Goblin Rides clutch control and you should be able to find them. Braking. Use both front and rear brakes for maximum stopping power. Apply smooth, gradual pressure to avoid skidding. Remember that most braking power comes from the front brake. I'm glad that it actually says this, because it's really easy to overuse the rear brake. I'm actually more in the habit of using my front brake on its own than using both brakes together. Because what happens, and I've explained this before, some people might disagree, but the way how a motorcycle kind of brakes, in fact, I'll show you, I'll get a model. So our model is ZZR 1400 here, if I can get this out of the way. So as it brakes, the weight is going to shift this way. And even though the suspension here is meant to try and push down on the rear wheel, on the rear tyre, to make sure that it's stuck to the ground, because there's no weight on it, if you apply the rear brake too much, it's just going to lock up. So once a tyre is locked up, it's not actually helping you brake. It's not actually helping you slow down. So that's why actually just using engine braking, so leaving the bike in gear, engine braking, and then using solely the front brake is going to do you just fine in the vast majority of circumstances. Using the rear brake is more for slow speed maneuvers, things like that, or maybe if you're getting into something called trail braking around bends and things, that might help. But for the most part, if you want the maximum stopping power, your front brake, your front wheel is going to provide you with the most stopping power. Simple as that. For reference, the rear brake is here. I don't think it mentioned that. No, it doesn't actually say. It just kind of just generally says get used to the controls. But yeah, the rear brake is on this side. The front brake is here on this handlebar. The clutch is on this handlebar, and the gear lever is on this foot peg right here. Alright, riding techniques. Maintain a relaxed grip on the handlebars and keep your arms and knees slightly bent to absorb bumps. Look ahead and scan for potential hazards. Practice smooth acceleration, braking, and cornering. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty accurate. Being relaxed on a bike is always going to be the best way. You don't want to be all tense and things like that, because you might actually find that your reactions aren't quite as smooth or aren't quite as quick if you're all tense when you're riding. But at the same time, naturally, when you start riding a bike to begin with, you are going to be a bit tense, you're going to be a bit nervous, you're going to be a bit anxious. But spend that time practicing and you'll learn to relax a little bit. And the thing is as well, I mean, it says here, keep your arms and knees slightly bent. I mean, naturally, that is probably what you're going to do anyway because of how ergonomics of motorcycles are set up. They are designed to keep your knees bent. They are designed to keep your arms bent ever so slightly, unless you're riding like a cruiser where the handlebars are like up here. I don't know how they ride like that, but yeah, practice smooth acceleration, braking, and cornering, I think, is perhaps the most important part about this little section here. The smoother you are with everything, the more in control you're going to be of the bike. Simple as that. Practice, practice, practice. Riding a motorcycle takes practice to master. Start in a safe, empty parking lot to get comfortable with the controls and handling. Gradually work your way up to riding in traffic and on different types of roads. Yeah, that is exactly right, to be honest with you. When you do your CBT, that is where you're going to start off, is in like a parking area of some kind. And yeah, they'll take you out onto the road after a good 2 or 3 hours practicing on the bike. And when you actually get your first bike, so say for example you've done your CBT and you get yourself a motorcycle or a scooter, practice yourself somewhere nice and quiet, even if it's just like on your street, somewhere where you know is quiet. Go there and practice a little bit before you go out onto the street. And the thing is as well, is riding in a controlled environment is totally different to riding on a road. Unfortunately, there's quite a lot to think about when you are on the road riding a motorcycle for the first time. But the one thing I want you to focus on more than anything else, just for the first few hours, is just to get used to how the bike feels. And if you're riding on roads that are quieter, then that's a lot easier to do. Whereas if you're riding in a city environment and there's traffic everywhere, everyone's honking their horns and everyone wants to get places and everyone's really impatient, well, that's just going to stress you out, you know? So yeah, try and go to the quietest area possible that is local to you and spend as much time as you need practicing. And of course, because you're going to be really excited about getting this motorcycle for the first time and riding it for the first time, you're going to put in those hours. And that's what you need. You need that good day, 2 days to really get used to the bike and get used to what it's like riding on the road. Stay safe. Always ride defensively and assume that other drivers may not see you. Obey traffic laws, avoid riding in bad weather or low visibility conditions, and never ride under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Okay, so this is a classic statement that you will see in a lot of articles, in a lot of riding magazines. I don't know, there's loads of literature out there on this statement here. I don't ride defensively, okay? More often than not, I ride assertively. Now, the reason why I say that is because defensive riding has the wrong connotations. It almost implies that you are allowing traffic around you to influence the way you ride. And that, for me, is not good. I absolutely refuse to allow anyone around me to control how I ride or to dictate how I ride. And so, when you're being more assertive, it's the idea that you are kind of in control of the situation, and the way how you're positioning yourself on the road, the attitude that you have towards the road, means that everyone else around you is understanding what your intentions are. They are fully aware of what you're doing, they're fully aware of what you're up to, and therefore they are prepared for whatever it is you're going to do. So, it's not allowing drivers to get the better of you. So, for example, a classic example is if you're riding a scooter, a 125cc scooter, a 50cc scooter, or a 125cc motorcycle, and you ride towards the inside of the road, so towards the pavement, towards the sidewalk, if you're an American, that encourages drivers behind you, if you're riding slowly in particular, because you are a learner, so you're going to be taking a little more time doing things. Drivers behind you aren't going to be that patient, so they're going to take that opportunity to overtake you. Well, assertive driving, or assertive riding, should I say, is where you actually position yourself on the road to stop, or at least to make drivers behind you think twice before they do something stupid. You give them an inch, they will take a mile, trust me. And it can be the downfall of a lot of riders riding defensively. And I know we've kind of discussed this before in previous videos about having like a hybrid approach. So understanding when to ride defensively, understanding when to ride assertively is probably the best practice. Well, more often than not, I find that assertive riding behavior is it's more suited for riding motorcycles because you are vulnerable, and one mistake can be the difference between you continue riding and not riding for the rest of your life. So again, it's all about trying to keep you as safe as possible and trying to make sure that you are in full control of the situation at hand, whatever the situation might be. And that's what I mean by riding assertively. And of course, obey traffic laws, avoid riding in bad weather. All right, obeying traffic laws, the vast majority of motorcyclists are going to push the boundaries out there a little bit, including myself. I'm not going to deny it, all right? But the vast majority of riders do. And it's one of those things where once you get comfortable with the bike, you get more confident on it, you are probably going to be doing the same thing as well. Avoid riding in bad weather or low visibility conditions. That is totally up to you, really. Some of us only have a motorcycle to get us from A to B. Riding in bad weather, we don't have a choice. Riding in low visibility, we don't have a choice. There are certain things you can do in low visibility, like putting on your high beams or wearing high-vis jacket, something like that. I don't like wearing high-vis jackets, but wearing contrasting colors, that's what you can do. Riding in bad weather, I actually wouldn't avoid you riding in bad weather. I'd actually encourage you to do so, because if, for example, you're out on a ride and the weather turns suddenly, you know what to expect. You understand that you have to change your running behavior ever so slightly to accommodate the weather. So I wouldn't avoid it entirely. Get that experience. If it's raining or it's very windy, go out and ride and see what it's like. You're not going to enjoy it, but at least after you've done it, you'll know what to expect. Continuous learning. Consider taking a motorcycle safety course to improve your skills and knowledge. Even experienced riders can benefit from advanced training. Okay, we've spoken about this before. Training courses. I am quite a skeptic of training courses for the most part. There are things that experienced riders will just know, whether through trial and error or I don't know, or just pure experience. But for the most part, you will gain that knowledge yourself as you are riding. All right. If you make a mistake, you'll learn from that mistake and you'll understand, okay, I could have done that better. Being self-reflective is just as good as taking a motorcycle safety course. If you make a mistake when you're out on a ride and you get home and you're like, okay, how could I have done that differently? And you think of all the different ways that could have happened, that could have gone down. Well, more often than not, you're going to find a better way than how it actually turned out. So I am skeptical of advanced rider courses. I know that there are going to be rider instructors out there that are going to be in the comments saying, rah, 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 you don't get it, blah, blah, blah. All right. I've been there, I've seen them, I've done it, I've had family members do these courses, and the things that they're describing aren't anything different to what I usually do. And the thing is that some people, they might seem surprised by that, but that's what I'm saying about assertive riding behavior. And these are police driving practices as well. When they're on the blues and everything like that, it's assertive driving behavior. This is something that I've learned from my dad, who he taught me how to drive. I've applied that same logic to a motorcycle, and believe it or not, that's basically the stuff that they will teach you. I mean, I don't know, maybe if you don't have someone like that to teach you that kind of stuff to begin with, then maybe something like an advanced motorcycle course will help you in that regard. But again, like road positioning, even if it means going onto the opposite side of the road, just to give yourself a little bit more visibility to see what's coming, to see what's down the road a little bit further so you can anticipate what's going on. Riding a bike is all about anticipating everything around you. And sometimes it means putting yourself in certain places on the road that might seem a little bit unorthodox or even dangerous to some people. But it's not. It's all about trying to be as aware as possible, give you the biggest, fullest picture of everything that's going on around you. And that's what advanced rider training is supposed to do. I'm not going to sit here and say that you shouldn't do it. Just take it with a pinch of salt. Do the training if you want to, but there are people out there that do their advanced rider training every single year, every single 2 years, something like that. By all means, do it once. If you've done it once, then you can make your own mind up then at that point whether or not you think it's beneficial to do it again. Me personally, I don't think it's beneficial for me, all right? But again, experience goes a long way. So, I mean, actually, funnily enough as well, if you've just done your riding test, your motorcycle test, you're out on the road and you go and do one of these advanced riding courses, it's not going to stick as well because you won't have that experience to connect dots together to understand why certain things are done. So if you are going to do a course like this or you're considering doing it, make sure you've got a good couple of years under your belt first before you go ahead and spend your money on something like this. So, of course, with this, you could go into a little bit more detail. So if there's something you're not quite sure about, then you can ask ChatGPT is how to learn clutch control on a motorcycle. Let's have a look. How to learn clutch control. Learning clutch control on a motorcycle is crucial for smooth and safe riding, especially when starting from a stop, maneuvering at slow speeds, and shifting gears. Here's how to learn clutch control effectively. Understanding the clutch. Clutch lever is located on the left handlebar, as we've mentioned. Finding a safe place area, yep, to practice. Mounting the motorcycle, yep, we know that. Starting the motorcycle, yep, we know that as well. Engaging the clutch. So with the motorcycle in neutral, practice slowly releasing the clutch lever whilst applying a small amount of throttle. Feel the point at which the engine starts to engage with the transmission. This is known as the friction zone. For us, we call it the bite point. So the point at which the clutch plates start meshing together and they start binding. Call that bite point. So applying a small amount of throttle. The reason why I don't teach this in my videos is because it's something else to think about. And when you're learning something, it's very difficult to learn when you've got all sorts of things to think about. So you've got to learn you've got to remember to make sure you don't let the clutch out fully, to let out slowly. You've got to make sure that you're balancing the bike. You've got to make sure that you open up the throttle a little bit. You've got to make sure your foot is covering the rear brake. There's lots of things to think about. So I try to just separate it. That's why I teach people the way I do with clutch control. Just focus on that clutch lever, on that left-hand lever. Just focus on getting the bike moving forward on its own steam at idle revs. Don't worry about the accelerator. Don't worry about the throttle whatsoever. If you want to, I mean, when I'm demonstrating it, I take my hand off the handlebar. That's not the best practice, and I don't want to encourage you guys to do that. So keep your hand on the handlebar. I just do that to prove that I'm not using any throttle whatsoever. But keep your hand on it, just don't twist that throttle. And just get used to moving the bike forward without stalling. Once you get to that point, you'll learn that you can do that at the same time as pulling back the throttle. And once you get that muscle memory, well, it's a lot easier to remember, isn't it, at that point? So you can just apply a little bit of throttle and then away you go. And of course, when you're getting off the line quickly, or quicker, then that's what you have to do. So you have to apply that same clutch control technique, but give it a lot more revs. Once you give it those extra revs, that's when you're going to propel yourself off the line much quicker. Controlled starts. Once you're comfortable with the friction zone, practice making controlled starts from a stop. Pull in the clutch lever, shift into first gear, and gradually release the clutch while giving a little throttle. As the motorcycle begins to move forward, continue releasing the clutch. Oh, okay, so that's pretty much the same as the previous statement. Okay, balance the throttle and clutch. Mastering clutch control involves finding the right balance between clutch and throttle. Too much throttle without enough clutch engagement can cause the bike to lurch forward or stall. Too little throttle with too much clutch engagement can cause the engine to bog down or stall. Too little throttle, there won't be too little throttle. The thing to remember is that every single time whenever you're opening the clutch, or you're releasing the clutch lever, so you're closing the clutch in fact, is the revs will go down. So say for example your idle revs are 1,500 RPM, maybe 1,100 RPM, depending on how warm or how cold the engine is. Well, the revs are going to go down a little bit, so you've got to try moving the bike off the mark, so getting the bike moving forward without losing too many revs. A bike will stall at around 700 to 600 RPM, any bike, all right? So as long as you're able to feather that throttle enough to keep it above, say, 800 RPM, then you are going to be moving the bike forward and you're going to be able to release the clutch fully, because by the time, when you're already moving, and you release that clutch all the way, well, that's when the idle will start going up and the bike will ride itself, in effect. Practice slow speed maneuvers. We've kind of looked at that a little bit before. Use clutch control to navigate turns, navigate tight turns and obstacles at slow speeds. Practicing riding in a straight line, making U-turns and weaving between cones or markers while maintaining control over the clutch and throttle. Yep. Again, this is one of those things that you will start to do once you're more comfortable with the clutch. Doing tight turns, clutch movement is very important, especially when you're doing things like U-turns or figure of eights, things like that. Yeah, that's when your clutch control has to be on point. Because you can imagine, if you're doing a tight turn, you're feathering that clutch, and you give it too much clutch, well, the bike's just going to stop, and then you're just going to fall over. right? So you've got to be able to try and keep the bike alive whilst you're feathering that clutch. And again, more often than not, that doesn't involve any throttle, or not a lot of throttle anyway. Shifting gears. Once you're comfortable with the clutch control at slow speeds, practice shifting gears smoothly, pulling the clutch shift up or down with your left foot, and release the clutch whilst adjusting the throttle to match the new gear. Interesting. You don't have to do this. Release the clutch whilst adjusting the throttle to match the new gear. You don't have to do this. This is called rev matching. And rev matching is one of those things that actually you would do when you're going down gears, not up gears. Well, as you're going up gears, so the revs are going to go up. When you go up a gear, you close the throttle fully, you upshift, so you push the gear lever up with your left foot, then you release the clutch. You don't have to worry about the throttle. The revs will automatically adjust themselves to the RPM of the gear, and then all you need to do is pull on that throttle, and then you'll continue accelerating. So you don't have to worry about that. And to be honest, rev matching you don't need to do as a motorcyclist. For road use, you don't have to worry about rev matching whatsoever. If you want to learn how to do it, we've got a couple of videos about that already as well. But you don't have to, honestly. It really is not that important. Repeat and practice. Clutch control takes time and practice to master. Be patient with yourself and continue practicing in different riding situations until you feel confident and comfortable with your clutch skills. Seek professional instruction. Consider taking a motorcycle safety course or working with a qualified riding instructor who can provide you guidance, feedback, and additional tips for improving your clutch control and overall riding skills. Remember to always prioritize safety whilst practicing clutch control and riding your motorcycle. Start slowly, gradually increase your skill level, and never hesitate to seek help or guidance if needed. Yep, absolutely. It's quite interesting actually though, because the amount of people that have left comments saying about how, why didn't my riding instructor tell me about it this way? Why didn't my riding instructor say it this way or do it this way? You know, that's the issue, is that because a motorcycle instructor, that they're just trying to get you to pass, or they're just trying to get you in and out the door as quickly as possible, they don't really go through the small minor details that people really struggle with, that people need to know, that people need to understand before they can start getting more confident. And that's what I'm here to try and do, is fill in those gaps for everyone that a motorcycle instructor doesn't teach you. I'm not a motorcycle instructor. I am, however, a martial arts instructor. I am a qualified sports coach. I have a degree in sports science and sports coaching, so I understand all the ways how. Well, the thing I understand is that people learn differently. You can't have one syllabus and expect everyone to be able to know or understand what everything means in that syllabus, because not everyone's going to learn that way. Some people learn really well by reading. Some people learn really well by demonstration. Other people learn really well by communication, by talking to them, by showing them, things like that. And I find that a lot of the time, the simplest way, or the way, I find that if you're able to separate and kind of compartmentalize all the little bits to do with anything, but we're talking about motorcycles in this instance. So if you compartmentalize certain things like, I don't know, lifting the bike off the ground, off the kickstand, using the throttle, using the clutch, using the gears, if you can compartmentalize all that and try and make it as simple as possible for people to understand, then, well, you're giving people a much better chance of getting it. And that's the problem, is that a lot of instructors, they'll demonstrate something once, twice, maybe 3 times, and they expect everyone to be able to do it. And they don't understand that these people have never done this before. You know, they've never done this before, and they've got to just wing it. And you just won't feel confident whatsoever. Once you understand that there's much simpler ways of doing things and much simpler ways to understand how these things are done, then it's much easier to do, because you understand what you are actually trying to achieve with the things that they're showing you, or with the things that I'm showing you. So it is what it is. All right, instructors, they have a job to try and get you in and out the door as quickly as possible. But honestly, it really does damage the confidence of a lot of people. My wife in particular, she's done a CBT twice now. And the first time she did it, she had a really bad experience, man. And she really had her confidence knocked, because, I mean, they kept on saying to her things like, oh, you're not ready to go on the street and blah, 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 things like that. She was just nervous. And clearly the way how they were trying to teach her wasn't working. And a lot of the time instructors don't get the reason why someone isn't getting something is because you're not teaching them properly. Your job is to instruct. Your job is to show people. Your job is to make sure that they know what they're doing and why they're doing it. A lot of instructors don't do that, unfortunately. The second CBT instructor, to be fair, that she had was much better. She was much more confident, and he was like, I really don't understand why your previous instructor was so difficult with you, because you're riding absolutely fine. To be fair, she had a little bit more experience than riding with me and what have you, and I'd helped her out. But it's a real struggle for some people. Some people find it a lot easier than others, and mistakes happen as well. It just is what it is. When you're learning something new, expect to make errors in judgment, expect to make mistakes. And you need to give yourself that room to practice, that room to learn, that room to allow for these mistakes, allow for these errors. But let's just wrap this video up here, because we're already on half hour. So okay, can ChatGPT teach you how to ride a motorcycle? No. All right, the information is fairly accurate for the most part, but a lot of it is very general. It's not very specific about what you need to do or how you need to do something. So it probably isn't going to be the best resource possible. But at the same time, if you use this information with information that you get from YouTube channels, from other riders, from us, from MCN articles, from other articles, things like that, then you're probably gonna get a much fuller picture. But the best way to learn how to ride a motorcycle at the end of the day is to get on a motorcycle and try riding it. All right. It's all well and good doing all this research beforehand, but until you actually have a motorcycle in front of you that you can practice on, none of this really matters. All right. So as much as it is good information for the most part, it's going to be very difficult to apply. You might understand the theory, but yeah, actually being able to apply it in practice can be a totally different matter entirely for you. But yeah, it's okay. And as we've kind of demonstrated here, if there's something that you need a little bit more information on, well, you can type that in as a prompt on ChatGPT, and it will give you a more detailed breakdown of what that point was or how to do that. The other questions that we had for ChatGPT, which I thought we were going to be able to get through today, were what do I do in a motorcycle crash? What riding gear do I need for a motorcycle? And how dangerous are motorcycles? Because this is all information that a lot of people are probably going to want to know, and you're probably going to do things like Google searches, which would be one thing, but ChatGPT is a way of being able to get that information much quicker, because, like I said, it kind of brings all that information together into one easy to read TLDR package, so to speak. But yeah, for the most part, it's okay. But as I said, take it with a grain of salt. All right. But anyway, I hope this video has helped you out. I hope this has been an interesting little insight into how AI can help us going forward in future with information or understanding why things are done or how things are done, especially with regard to motorcycles anyway. And let me know what you think down in the comment section below. This feature or this program, ChatGPT, is totally free as well. If you just Google ChatGPT, the top link, you just have to create an account and you'll be able to start using it for yourself. And if there's any more information that you want out of this, just ask away and see if it comes out with decent information. Just make sure that you are corroborating that with other articles, other things that you might find online, other bits of research. Because again, if you're finding like contradictory bits of information, then, well, it makes it a little bit harder then to believe one over the other. But more often than not, if you're getting the same pattern or the same kind of information from different sources, then it's probably going to be best practice, or at least it's going to be somewhat accurate information. And it's a good place to start, at least, anyway. But yeah, thank you again for watching. Leave a like, get subscribed, let us know what you think down in the comment section, as always, and we will catch you all in the next video. Have a good one.